What kind of a man did you know him as?
Well, the man was a nice man, just like anybody else. The only difference I'd say in the man, he seems to be a little odd.
Odd.
Odd,
Did you
yeah.
ever suspect anything like this? Or?
No, I'd say he was more or less a pleasant man who would be a nice man to talk to, or somebody would like to have around. He seems to be harmless fella, you know.
Boy, And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, guys, I warn you ahead of time, this ain't for the faint of heart, because I want you to really see, I absolutely do not glorify serial killers or nothing of the sort. I do sometimes do true crime videos, but I'm going to show you what real horror is and where they've come up, and you automatically probably know, as you've seen from the first of that broadcast, that man was talking about a man named Edward Theodore Gein, or Ed Gein, or the Butcher of Plainville, or also the Ghoul of Plainville. You've all heard it before. Psycho, Leatherface, Buffalo Bill, go on and on. It's based off of this man. So, sit back, chill, and like I said, if you're squeamish, you might as well stop this now, because I'm fixing to get into what made the monsters on the screen the real-life horror of Ed Gein. So, if you like, subscribe. If not, fine, that's cool. Edward Theodore Gein is born August 27th, 1906. He was born in La Crosse County, Wisconsin. He was the second of two boys of George and Augusta Gein. But Augusta Gein, Ed Gein's mother, and Ed had a brother named Henry. Now, Henry and Ed, both, Augusta taught them, she was very religious, and she would preach to her sons about immorality in the world and evil drinking and belief of all women is evil, the devil. Apart from herself, of course, that they were naturally sexually instruments of the devil. Just ugh. Henry, I don't think really bought into that too much, but Ed did. I think Ed was a little slow-witted. Anyway, mind you, she taught him all that, and Henry was dating a woman and was going to marry her, I reckon. She had youngins or whatever, and he's going to move in with her. Well, he wanted Ed to move in with him. But Henry badmouthed his mom every chance he got, and I think Ed didn't like that. Well, May 6, 1944, Ed and Henry was out burning brush. The fire got out of control, fire department shows up, they put the fire out, they leave. Well, when they do, just a little while later, Ed calls the fire department, calls the police department and says his brother's missing. He can't find him. Well, when the law comes back out there, they got search parties and everything, and when they finally find Henry, apparently he was laying face down. He'd been dead for a while. They just went ahead and chalked it up as heart failure. But come to find out later, they discovered that Henry had bruises on his head and he died of asphyxiation. We don't know, but it could be the Cain and Abel deal on that. But anyway, Augusta had Ed all to herself. But she had a stroke, so she didn't get around much. And on December 29, 1945, she died. This absolutely destroyed Ed Gein. So, Ed would do odd jobs around town and stuff to make his living, plus he sold some land and everything. It was his brother's. And when his mom died, he boarded up the whole upstairs rooms that his mother used and the downstairs parlor and the living room. He left them untouched. But the rest of the house went to squalor. It was bad. And he lived in a little room next to the kitchen, and this is when he started reading these horror comics and pulp magazines and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, On the morning of November 16th, 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Worden disappeared. Now, Bernice's son was Frank Worden, but he was gone. The day before, Ed was there, and I reckon that was the last person that bought anything. Or he bought a jug of antifreeze, and Bernice had wrote the receipt out to Ed Gein. Well, nobody knowed where Bernice was at. Well, when Frank Worden got there, remember, he thought it was Ed. The law arrested Ed at a grocery store. I think it was in the far end of the county, whatever, but they arrested him at the grocery store and they took him home. Now, guys, here's where it's going to get very, very graphic. The law went to Gein's farmhouse. They went out to the shed, and what they found, worse than any movie could show you, is Bernice Worden decapitated, hung upside down with their ankles and feet tied and dressed out like you would a deer, gutted. They couldn't believe it. Now, this is 1957. She'd been shot in the back of the head with a .22 caliber. What he'd done is he'd went in and back in. You could, hardware store stuff actually had guns and stuff. He had a .22 shell with him. He'd put it in the gun, shot her in the back of the head, and drug her out there. Well, on further inspection of the house, this is what they found. Now, like I said, Mary Hogan, a few years before this, went missing. When they went in Ed Gein's house, this is what they found. See, Ed evidently was digging up graves, including his own mother's, and bringing them back to the house. They found whole human bones and fragments, a wastebasket made of human skin covering several chair seats, skulls on his bedposts, female skulls, some with the tops cut off, bowls made of human skulls, a corset made from female torso, skinned from shoulder to waist. Damn. Leggings made from real human leg skin. Mask made from the skin of a female head, don't know. Mary Hogan, mind you, the woman that was missing, her face in a paper bag. Her face like Leatherface, cut her face off, okay. Mary Hogan's skull was in a box. Bernice Worden's head was in a burlap sack outside buried. Worden's heart was in a plastic bag sitting in front of a pot-bellied stove. Likely he was going to eat it, don't know. He supposedly ate human flesh. I don't know if he had or not. They found 9 vulvas in a shoebox. And not Volvos either. 4 noses, I know you've heard this, a belt made of female nipples, and a lampshade made from the skin of a human face. And it can go on and on and on, and I'm not going to say here. But he had made about 40 trips to the graveyard and digging them up. They thought he might have been full of shit. Well, they go there and he tells them to dig up a certain grave. When they do, the damn crowbar, there wasn't nobody in it. There's a crowbar. He'd left the crowbar back in the damn casket. So he was charged with Bernice Worden's murder and Mary Hogan's, and they think maybe about 7 more. But he was committed to an insane asylum where he did stand trial 10 years later, because that's in 1958, 1968. He stood trial 10 years later, and they still found him incompetent. He died in 1984 of lung cancer, and they said he is a model patient. These is what movies is based off of Ed Gein. Psycho, 1960, as you can tell. Deranged, 1974. In the Light of the Moon, 2001. Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield. Ed Gein, the musical. Ed Gein, the musical. Then they've got Rob Zombie, The House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, based on Ed Gein, or inspiration from it. Norman Bates, of course, from Psycho. Leatherface from Chainsaw Massacre. Buffalo Bill, Silence of the Lambs. And Oliver Threadsom, I think that's how you pronounce his name, on That America Horror Show, Asylum. Their songs been sung about him and everything. Now, the real horror is what he done. Not that on TV ain't shit. So next time you ever watch a movie, The Silence of the Lambs, Leatherface, like I said, you guys seen it. Imagine it, but 10 times worse. You take care. God bless.